Okay, go ahead.
Great. Good evening, everyone. We are in, what is this, month July. Welcome to July's Ann Arbor District Library Board of Trustees meeting. Let me call our meeting to order. Pretend that's a gavel. Eli, can we get a roll call or can we get attendance, please? Do we have attendance?
Eli, you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Trustee Leha's absent. Trustee Moore is here. Trustee Song is here. Trustee Vanderbroek is here.
Great.
Okay.
Great. We've got quorum, so let's get to work. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I move to approve the agenda.
Is there any discussion? Or I'm sorry, is there a
Second.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
We need to do a roll call vote. Yeah. Okay, Trustee Ackman?
Yes.
Trustee Green?
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman?
Yes.
Trustee Moore?
Sorry.
That was an AADL TV commercial.
I know. I was going to the AADL YouTube.
All right, Trustee Moore?
Yes.
Trustee Song?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbroek?
Yes.
Okay, all set.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I think Molly is seconding.
Trying to, yep, second.
Great. Any discussion? No? Okay. Eli, can we have roll call, please?
Okay, Trustee Ackman?
Yes.
Trustee Green?
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman?
Yes.
Trustee Moore?
Yes.
Trustee Song?
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbroek?
Yes.
All right, passes.
Great. Thank you. Citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments?
Do we ever? Okay.
Oh,
Let me, we have a couple that just came in. I'll get to those first. I'm going to go in order from the ones we received the longest ago and work up to most current. So these have been coming in since just after the last meeting. So here we go. Hi, my name is Sangini and I'm a medical student at UM. This is my first year playing the summer game and I love that it's introducing me to more of Ann Arbor, even though I've been a Michigander my whole life. I'm hoping to find some to read more than just my textbooks this year, and the game is a great motivator. A huge kudos to everyone involved for your enthusiasm, creativity, and excellent wordplay. Thanks, Sangini. Okay, next is from Patricia Griffin and her son Toviel. Thank you for commencing the book pickup procedures in June. We have been very keen to refresh our books since March. We'd like to request that the children's librarians add some Swahili language books to the collection, as there are currently none in the collection. Thank you, Patricia Griffin and son Toviel. And we did pass that on to the collections department when that arrived. Okay, next up. Hello, my name is Brianna, a student at UMich. While living in Ann Arbor, I've discovered the joys of the AADL system as well as the ingenuity of the summer and bummer games. I always participated in the summer reading programs K-12 at my local library and was worried about missing them upon moving to Ann Arbor. However, I'm entering my third year of playing the summer game and look forward to it each year. It easily makes up for me missing my hometown's reading program. Thank you for everything that you do, and I, like another citizen's comment from the last meeting, hope to see more vintage buttons in the 2020 store. Brianna C. Marble. Okay, our next comment is from Soledad Beck. Dear AADL, I am 11 years old and I love going to the library and I love reading. My brother is 7 and also loves these things. We both love playing the summer game and love that it is still happening. I would like to say thank you to all the people who put time and effort into making the library such a fun and enjoyable place to be. Thank you, AADL staff, Soledad and Kadir. And P.S. we, every color of heart emoji, you guys so much. All right. That's one thing we miss out on with the in-person comments is it's harder to have emoji in your in-person comments. Okay. Next comment is from Karen Thurman. We miss you and are looking forward to visiting once the library can reopen. Best, Karen. Let's see. Our next comment is Hello, my name is Erica Kwiatkowski. I grew up in Jackson, Michigan, but have since moved to Lisbon, New Hampshire. I just learned about your summer game and it is brilliant. I love the engagement with the library, catalog, and community. Not to mention, the searches are tricking me into learning a ton of cool facts. I was elected to the board of my tiny town's library right before the pandemic, and I'm very inspired by what you have going on. Congrats to you all, and if you have any hot tips, please feel free to let me know. Regards, Erica Kwiatkowski. Okay, next up. Good morning. This is a comment to the library board for the meeting on July 20th. We want to thank the AADL staff for all their hard work. Our family is so glad the library is reopened for pickups, and we are endlessly amused by the summer game badges and AADL TV. We love how summer game encourages us to engage with our community and surroundings, and the staff has adapted it beautifully for this challenging time. All the best, Helen Fuller. Next up. Hello, my name is Patricia Lai at 2809 Leslie Park Circle. Here's my message for the Board of Trustees meeting tomorrow. Thank you to all of AADL for all of your time and energy you put into making the summer games happen. I thoroughly enjoy doing the badges because I learned so much. I'm especially grateful for the badges on Ann Arbor Parks because you helped me to find a fun park that's in the shade. We are very lucky to have such tremendous talent and support from the library. Thank you so very much. All right, next up. Hi, my name is Marionette Cano, and my comment is, I would like to thank the AADL for everything you are all doing during the COVID crisis. You've done so much to accommodate the patrons, from having convenient pickups, providing entertaining and educational videos, and finding clever ways to continue the summer game. All of your hard work is greatly appreciated. Thank you again, Marionette.
I'm Marionette.
And here's from Meg Hickson. As an Ann Arbor resident and frequent library visitor, I would like to thank the AADL's Board of Trustees and the library's leadership team for their actions during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm especially thankful to the library for keeping staff members employed throughout and after the lengthy closure period, and for coming up with innovative ways that staff from across the library can continue to interact with and serve the public. AADL.TV has been a consistent source of entertainment and connection since March, and the Bummer and Summer Games have been an especially welcome distraction this year. I'm happy to see that the library has implemented no contact lending procedures that protect both staff and borrowers while still allowing for circulation. Finally, I would like to thank the library for hosting thoughtful and engaging Black Lives Matter programming, and I hope to see this become a consistent priority in the AADL's programming and collection development policies going forward. I would like to thank you and thank all AADL employees for all of the hard work you have done and continue to do to serve the community during this challenging period. Meg Hickson. Okay, and now I have 2 video comments. So here comes the first of 2 video comments.
Hi, I just wanted to say thank you so much for everyone at the Ann Arbor District Library who has made the summer game so much fun. Today it was really rainy, and was passing the time with our kids in the car, and both under the age of 6. And we had so much fun driving to the different library branches just to find the codes on the banners, and even saw a bonus or 2 outside the downtown library. Anyways, it's a great addition to the summer, especially during the pandemic, and sure beats reading the news all the time to be able to look up codes in the catalog. So thank you so much for all the wit and interesting fun facts that everyone has put into this to make this summer more interesting. Thanks. Bye.
Okay, and that was, let's see, Tara Cohen. And here comes a comment from her kid.
Okay, let me make sure it works. Okay, now it's gone. It's going.
Okay. I'm Oscar. I'd like to tell you some things about the summer games. I love them, and I'd like to order. What?
Beach ball.
How many?
You want to get 4 beach balls.
4 beach balls, please. Thank you. Now, thank you for saying I get 4 beach balls. Thank you. I'll be going now.
And that's Oscar Cohen. And I have 2 more comments here, I think. And then there are 2 more that just come in. All right, here's one from Evelyn. I love the summer game and was wondering how long each of the current members have been on the board of directors. Also, what is everyone's favorite item ever sold in the summer game shop? Evelyn.
Should we answer that now?
we can perhaps respond to her later if you'd like to send your favorites. All right.
Let's think on that.
Here's another. A big thank you to the board and the staff of the Ann Arbor District Library for all of their work in making the AADL a community treasure. The AADL is one of a kind. That's from Kathy Chow. And then I have, let's see, 2 more that have just come in. All right. Here's our citizens' comment for the July 20th meeting. Dear Board of Trustees and library staff, you are great and you have awesome prizes for the summer game. We are some of your #1 fans. We love the library and all that you do with the summer game. It's amazing and one of the best parts of the summer for us. We really like the parks badges and the home codes that you've introduced this year. We also liked how you set up the contactless pickup. It feels very safe. We think you are doing a great job. Also, please permanently abolish late fees as they don't create equal access for all library patrons. Stay safe, stay great, the Weich family. Okay, and there is one more, and then I received one via phone. I'll have to check later, and we'll save that for the end. Thank you, AADL, for making the Summer Game 2020 just as fun as prior years. While we can't explore each branch looking for codes this year, we are all having a lot of fun exploring the parks and figuring out the codes from all the park signs. I'm also excited to see the new prizes this year in the Summer Game Shop. Looking forward to seeing what other badges are dropped during the remaining weeks of this year's game. The Towers family. And that is all of the comments I've received so far.
Great, thank you, Eli. We'll encourage folks to continue to submit comments, and then we'll wrap at the end of the meeting. We'll revisit this. So, Eli, can you remind folks what are the ways to submit comments?
Certainly. So you can email us at ask@aadl.org. You can send in a video or a text comment. You can also, if you're watching the stream live on YouTube, you can leave a comment on the comment in the chat on the YouTube live stream, and that will be read at the end of the meeting. And then finally, you can also call 734-327-4245 and leave your message on the voicemail, and we will play that. We can't guarantee we'll get those into this meeting, but if you leave some now, we will listen to them for next time.
Great. Thank you so much, Eli. All right, so moving on, financial reports from Josie, please.
Thank you. The financial reports begin on page 28 of your printed board packet, if you have it printed or what you have in your files. This is 12 months into June 30th, 2020, and it's draft because all of the expenditures haven't been booked, and also all of the funds haven't, as of the date of this, were not received. So some of the last checks coming in from tax entities were still being received, and I know a couple of them came in late last week. So this is draft until the books are closed, and we do that with the audit, and the auditors will be here in August. And so if they find anything that needed to be booked into this year, they'll do that. And so it's exactly what you normally see, but we're calling it draft because it technically is. So the important thing in the 28 on page 28 is the cash and tax receipts and the fund balance activity are there as of June 30th, and the financial summary on page 29 shows the revenue total cash receipts through June 30 equal almost $17.5 million, and expenditures through June 30th was 16,300 something thousand. So we were expecting to spend less this year because of the closure than we had revenue. So that is in line with what we anticipated. So actual cash receipts were 98.76% of the budget, and actual cash expended was 92.24. So that gives you a picture of just what that difference is. And grants and memorials are updated for the year that just closed as well. On page 30, it's the balance sheet for the governmental funds. It shows everything: the general fund, the capital fund, restricted grants, and then the total governmental funds. So we're able to see what the total fund balance in the general fund is $7.9 million. And then the capital fund is almost $2 million. Then in restricted grants, meaning those that are restricted by the donor or have permanent corpus, is almost $800,000. So the library is in very good financial shape going into this year with a budget that you passed that is pretty much with the same budget as last year. So we did not increase our expenditures coming up through this year in anticipation of a budget in 2021 that will look very different. And we anticipate that. So I'm comfortable with our position at this point in time, knowing that we will be having to work harder in the coming year with a budget projection. The revenues and expenditures, you can see the where the interest income, there was the stock market, the markets did really well for a while. And so you can see it in our interest income, but you can also see where in places like copier revenue, where without the public being able to copy and be in the buildings, certain things were just going to go down. Non-resident fees, you can see how that went down. And then library fines, fees, and others also the same. And that was anticipated because we have not charged library fines since March 13th. And we don't have any anticipation of beginning them again at this point in time. It won't happen until we get back open, and we'll determine what's the best way to do that and how at that point in time. So I imagine that'll be more conversation with the policy committee that's going to be established in this meeting this evening. So it's the last page of the budget was the revenues and expenditures for the 12 months and showing you the different lines and the governmental funds for 12 months ending 6/30/20. And again, I don't see anything in this budget end of year that is a surprise to us or that should be a surprise to you based on our conversations up to now. But if anyone has questions, I'm more than happy to answer them or try to. I want to thank the staff, all the staff involved in supporting the development of financials under our new system of contracting with Manor Casterison. HR has a big role to play in this with payroll and the benefits and things that are reported. IT definitely, and Len Lamori and facilities, they all work very hard to make sure that all of their pieces are done and are able to be incorporated into the work that here she is. She made it. Cleo the cat. There we go. She did make it in real life. Hi, Cleo. Say hi, Cleo. Thank you. I had to do it. She jumped up here, so I'm being very unprofessional, but that's Cleo.
Is that worth some summer game points or
2,000?
Okay.
Yeah. Eli's gonna kill me, but she's my code. And she's 2,000 points. So I figure if she's going to show up for the meeting, if somebody says I saw her at the board meeting, they should have the points. So, so if there are any questions about the budget, I'm happy to answer them.
Josie, the O'Neill line item, is that something Len's going to go into in his report then?
The O'Neill line item?
Yeah, there's, I think that was the, let's see.
Is that in the check register?
Yeah, the check register.
Yep, that's the payment that we had to O'Neill. They're the construction companies working on all of the work and the 4th floor meeting room and Trevorwood right now. So that you've approved that work, and so we got all of the payment pay packages, and that was a check that popped that up. So that's something you would have known about. You would have approved in a prior meeting. So.
Yeah. I'm so glad that's continuing. That work really needs to be done.
Yep.
Are there any other questions for Josie on the finances?
Just want to say thank you. It's really clear cut. So
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, folks, we'll move on then. Thank you, Josie. On to our committee reports. Karina and I met just right before the meeting at 6 tonight and caught up with Josie on a couple things, mostly preparing for our August meeting and catching up on our concerns around what reopening is looking like, what the fall might look like, if there's coordination. And we asked Josie some questions around coordinating with the schools, and just keeping a close eye on what the schools have planned, and also obviously keeping a close eye on what's happening, what the governor decides, and how the Michigan safe plans. Is that right, Josie?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Michigan safe
start.
Safe start. I was missing that word. Michigan safe start. Correct.
Yeah, that's it.
And I'll talk about that a little bit in my director's report too.
Yeah, so we were just getting a little bit of early insight into what's going to happen later in the meeting. We talked about the committee that will be formed later also in the meeting on patron and building policies. And I think we had a really nice reminder how Josie functions outside of library programming and library issues and HR issues and our partnerships with the DDA and with the city, and we had a little quick update on how the library was represented in HE0 environmental work and what's to come with the DDA, because we are also part of downtown. I think that's really it. So, thank you, Josie. Thank you, Corinne, for making that time. We still have a lot of work to do. It'll be really interesting. Things will keep changing. But our safety and priority for staff and for the community are still the #1 priority. Is there anything else? Did I miss anything, Corinne or Josie?
I don't think so.
Okay, great.
That's it.
Thanks. Should we go right into Josie's director's report?
Sure. Thank you. Eli will put up the slides. Okay. This one is the code for this evening, fiscal year. So for this board meeting. So if someone's watching, here it is for tonight. Besides Cleo. So this what we're calling the service phasing plan, and this is updated a little bit as of today. The drop boxes are open, and so we're in that stage 4 of the governor's Safe Start plan. So drop boxes are open at all locations. Pickup appointments are occurring at all locations. Pickup appointment hours are 12 to 8 at all locations. Call center hours are 12 to 8, 7 days, just like pickup appointments. Contactless printing service is now available, so a person can ask for us to print material. We place it in an envelope using the same careful methods that we're using to handle materials. People have on masks and gloves, and then put a person's name on it, and it's shelved with the material that's waiting to be picked up in alphabetical order by that person's name in that envelope. So if somebody needs any kind of printing done, that we can do for them. Public computing is in development. We'll launch that after a rollback in the governor's Safe Start plan if a rollback is less likely. So we're in the space right now where we're watching the numbers and the stats and listening to her closely. And until she moves us definitively forward into stage 5, we're holding on this. So we're not allowing people pat beyond the vestibules right now. So we are piloting a no computer helpline for those people in the community who have no computer. We're piloting a way to help them. This is complicated by the fact that much of what people need to do involves their very personal information. And so the library is having to be incredibly cautious about how much we want to know about a person's private business in order to help them. So it's tricky, and it's why it's a pilot right now. So the staff PPE and notification procedures are in place. In the event that a staff person feels that they might have a COVID exposure or they're exhibiting COVID symptoms, we have a process in place. Everyone's working on teams. Teams are building specific so that if we do have someone with a positive test, we're able to deal with it building by building and not the entire system. That includes downtown, which is a little bit more complicated, but we're keeping teams isolated to floors to the best of our ability, so that we wouldn't have to close the entire work downtown down in the event that someone became positive on a downtown team. So that's how we're doing this. We have 4 work from home teams that are active for staff. Anyone on staff who's interested in being on one of those work for home teams can say so. And this is a way people can get hours without being physically in the building. The lobby vestibule, the persons working the lobby vestibules on the monitors are at home. People who are answering our phones, and by the way, we've had phone service in person, real people answering the phone since the day we closed. So the library has never been unavailable to its public. And so those people are working at home. So just to give you examples, the people who are doing the story times, all the AADL TV, people are working from home. So, okay, thank you. In the service phasing plan, once we move to 5, we will begin phasing in limited open hours, walk-in computing, shelf browsing, and self-checkout. We will not have in-person events. We will not have room bookings, but exhibits can resume. And we know that that'll be a welcome attribute for being in the buildings, for people to come in and see exhibits. We had some really great exhibits planned that we've had to postpone or to cancel. So we're looking forward to being able to do that. But that is in 5. So in 6, we'll have regular library hours, open seating, in-person events, all staff back to working in the buildings, or not, depending upon what we change, based on what we've seen. And then meeting room bookings and rentals will begin again. So we've had to cancel all of those. Thank you, Eli. So this is a pickup appointments update. We're giving you all a lot of information tonight about this because we know you're going to hear from your friends and neighbors about, I used to put a hold on for a material and I had it in a couple of days. What's up? What's wrong? What's going on at the library that I can't get my material? So this is by location, and you can see that chart. Since we started pickup appointments at the library, we have had over 57,000 appointments made for a little over 7,000 patrons. That is a lot. And you can see that which branches are getting the most activity, and that doesn't surprise us at all. And then this one is requests placed per day by pickup point. And you can see where the peaks are, and generally after the 4th of July, this shot up. And so we had over 70,700 requests placed since 22nd of June. That's about 12 to 15,000 a week. And then our volume comparison, if we compare this to 2019 in the same period of time, it's actually pretty amazing that it's over, in total, it's about 35% compared to when we're open for business. And in some locations, it's close to 50%. And so Eli and I were talking about this earlier. Before COVID, our circulation was based on probably about 40% of it were holds placed this way. Most all of it was actually people coming in and choosing and material. So this is changing, clearly changing that. The pickup appointments update requests placed per week between 2019 and 2020 shows you that change in July from last year when we were open full time, and this year in July this year, there's not a lot of difference. And actually since the 12th of July, we have had more requests placed than we did last year when we were wide open. And what this is leading to is the total requests by pickup location. And this is the items on the paging list. And this is why I'm going through all of this. The paging list is the list that staff have each day to go out and pull for that location to fill holes. So we have 146,000 total requests. That's frozen and active. So we have 71,000 active requests. And on any given day, we can pull 10,000. So when your friends are saying, I'm not getting my material, what's going on at the library? That is what's going on at the library. That is how much work there is. That is how hard we're working. And people are doing a really good job of holding their own and keeping up with that.
Let me jump in for just 1 second there, Josie. We're not able to pull 10,000 a day. There are 10,000 things that are showing up waiting to be pulled per day. It takes multiple days for us to get through the list. We're not able to pull, like typically before the closure, we would have 800 to 1,000 items on the downtown paging list every day. And that was something that we could keep up with. Now we're basically operating with half the staff at any given point, and we have 8 to 10 times as many items to pull from the list. So that's the nature of the backlog.
So it's not as optimistic as picture as I painted it, but that was just about me not understanding the number. So I apologize.
Well, I made a request 2 days ago for something new and it already showed up for me to pick up. So, I mean, my impression is, sure, maybe it's not as fast as before, but it seems pretty darn fast given the situation.
It just depends on whether or not it's here. If it's checked out to someone, we don't know when it'll be coming back in.
Sure.
Also, what we say to people is even if you see something that you put a hold on and it showed you as that's on the shelf, you might be the 20th person in that period of time who saw it and put the hold on it. And so you don't know what else is happening around those materials. So would you add to that, Eli?
Yeah, I would just say that the new stuff is easier to get because it's in circulation. And so when it comes back, it goes to whoever's next. It's the stuff that has been sitting on the shelves for years and someone wants that. It's not going to get pulled until we get through the list of 8,000 items at the downtown library, as an example. So it's like the hot popular stuff is you'll wait less time because it's moving. It's the things that are sitting, waiting on the shelf that will take us longer to get caught up on and get back to the point where those things are getting filled in 2-3 days. It'll take us weeks to get back to that point.
We have a question from Victoria.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Lynn. Yeah, Josie and Eli, I've also had quick response on picking things up, but I think my real question is the backlog growing or shrinking? Like, is it bigger or smaller than it was last week?
It's bigger, but we have a higher volume of holds coming in this week. Generally, more holds are being placed than we are able to fill per week. So more holds are coming in.
At this point, we're expecting that times might actually lengthen for a while.
Well, it depends though, because it depends on which of those holds are on items that have a queue and which of them aren't. The items which have a queue, it doesn't make any difference. You're going to get it when it's your turn. It's the things that are sitting on the shelf. So it's basically, if you're requesting an older item, it could still be weeks before we pull it.
Okay. Thank you for the update. And thank you, Lynn.
Okay. And so I wanted to call out the fact that Sherlanya was invited to participate in an international conference called What Matters Now. This was pulled together by the director of the Museum of the United Nations in UK. And she did a great job talking about, it's about creating, making, thinking, and caring for one another and innovating during COVID and what comes next. And she did a marvelous job talking about AADL TV, and we thought she was absolutely the best presenter, but but she really was. And so I wanted to call out the fact that she did this for us. And so it put us on a global stage during the pandemic, and we appreciated the invitation and her willingness to do this. Summer Games Shop launched and opened on Friday. And I wanted to make sure everyone knows that the shop closes September 7th, and the orders will be packaged and delivered to us sometime in mid-late September, and then we'll be getting them to the public. So that's how that's working, and people seem to be really happy with some of the things, the new things. So summer game home codes are new. So we're doing that, and if you don't have one yet, we encourage you to do it. You can see the map with the pins down below. People who have a home code can choose to put their home code on the map, and so a lot of code seekers are going around town finding the home code in windows or in yards. This was like similar to what we did last year with the code on the yard signs. So people are having lots of fun with this. So 231 codes so far. This was a fun moment for me. I'm doing the Wednesdays in the garden. I've done them for the last 2 weeks, and it's weather dependent, and so it worked out really well. So 117 redemptions so far, which has been fun. And this young man and his older brother were in the garden last week, and he was completely and totally enamored with the Josie Bot pen. And as you can see, and it was very kind of his parents to send in the photo. So I'll be there Wednesday from 1:30 to 4:30, and you enter the library downtown garden from William Street. So wear a mask and come and say hello and get a code worth 2,000 points. Thank you. So I wanted to remind you of all of the book discussions that we're doing around Black Lives Matter. We're generally doing 2 books, a movie, or podcast discussions per week. This is the list for the next week or so. And we are getting attendance ranging from 6 to 9 people for small groups are showing up for some of these, up to close to 200 for others. I think the new one on this list is the 1619 project. Is that right, Eli? Because we've done the Hate You Give. And
No, we had done the 1619 project a couple times last week.
Okay.
Yeah, all of these are repeats. These have all happened at least once.
All right, so I've missed the 1619 project, but the others I knew. So we're continuing to do this, and the people who are participating are very involved in it, very interested in the conversation and contributing in amazing ways. So we're continuing to go and continuing to do this. And I want to thank Sherlanya again for helping organize and pull this together in a way that's productive and accessible. So thank you for that. We also launched this week in our newsletter a call for artists. So we're going to have people, a Black artist, to submit for Library Lane mural. If you look out there now, there are murals painted on canvas that U of M art students did almost a year ago. And it's held up really well. It gets a lot of attention. So we thought this was a good opportunity to change that and have an opportunity for Black artists to pitch their own work for that location. We're also asking Black artists to showcase and exhibit in the library, and also for our circulating art collection, art that is appropriate that we can put in the collection for people to check out. And then our ongoing graphic design work opportunities. We work with graphic designers and artists outside of the library staff on a number of our graphic design projects, and we would like to see and encourage Black artists to participate with us in that effort. So we're calling it out, putting it more forward, and hoping to have a good response. And I believe I was told today that we have had 5 responses already to the library lane idea. Is that correct, Eli?
Yeah, that's correct. Since Friday.
Since Friday. So we're very happy about that. Very happy about that. So, okay. The social media responses to contactless pickup have been overwhelmingly positive, and the few that aren't are, you know, for the most part, are folks who really want to come in and browse. So they're not saying contactless is bad or there's something wrong with it. They're saying they want more, and we expected that. So, but these are the responses to what we're doing so far, and we thought you should see. You heard some tonight in the comments section of the board meeting, but here are some that are written too. All right. And then these are more, and some photographs of people obviously sending messages where they've come in and picked something out, picked something up, and then pictures of that's the Mounts Creek branch, and then the downtown vestibule. And here are more: Westgate, downtown, and it looks like Trevor Woods window, and pick more comments from people. And this is about going around to the parks. And I have to say, the 2 little boys that you see holding hands and walking through the park are that the younger one is the one who is probably sleeping with his Josie Bot pen. So that's his older brother walking with him through the park. You know, I have to say, I saw that photograph and the comment about the memories made forever. And I know the older child will remember this time. He's old enough to. And I'm grateful, so grateful to work in a place that will work so hard to make sure that little children right now who will remember this will have happy, positive memories about this time, as well as growing up and reading the history and knowing that it was a sad time. But for them right now, we're making it a happy, positive time. And that's my report. Any questions about anything? I apologize if it's a little choppy. It's weird doing this in Zoom and then looking at my notes and keeping up with all the comments. So if anybody has questions or wants more clarification or more information, happy to do that.
I have a question, Josie. I'm curious how, now that it feels like I think at the start of this, we sort of felt like it would be a limited amount of time and we would get back in the building, but now it feels like it will go on for quite some time at somewhat similar, like we might be in this place we're in now for longer than I think we all realized. And I just wonder how the staff are doing, like now that it's like kind of a longer haul for them to be separate from each other. Like if you feel like they are you know, kind of like still able to like collaborate with each other, or if like they're sort of flagging or having a hard time being away, or just like how they're doing.
I think all of that, Jamie. I think all that's true. I mean, I think that I'm in the building a few days. I'm in the building some days all day every week, most days some of the time. And I see this I'm trying also to stay within my team, and I see people. And I know that seeing people and just having an interaction, you can see the lift because you're out of wherever you've been staying. I think there's a lot of collaboration that's going on in teams. We've worked really hard to provide Zoom opportunities ongoing through all of this for teams to meet and be in a space together. So they are seeing and talking to each other, even if they're not in the same space. We know our staff. We know who is alone. And so I know that different people on the staff reach out to make sure to contact individuals we know are quarantining alone. I've done it. I know other people do too. And just call them up and talk to them. I think people really appreciate that. So we're trying our best to make sure that people can know that they can talk to us if they want someone to talk to. I will tell you that while we've been fortunate not to have anyone on staff test positive for COVID, we do have people on our staff who've lost family and loved ones to COVID. And we have people right now who have family in ICU units around the country. And we know that. And we are supporting them as best we can. It's such an awful situation because they can't go. And even if they did, they couldn't see the person. So it's knowing that and trying to be empathetic when it's not our experience, but to try to be empathetic. So we're very aware of all of that. The library has been incredibly supportive of its staff through all of this. And I say that as a staff member. It has been incredibly supportive of its staff. And I think for most of the people who work at AADL, if they had the chance to talk to you, that would be what they would say to you, because it's what they say to me. And so I can share that with you. There are stories we have that are heartbreaking. And then there are, people who we're hoping, we keep talking to them because we know they're on their own. They're a long way from their families. It's not easy. I encourage people to get outside because it's so that right now is an option, and go outside and walk outside and be able to be out and away from in the four walls, I call them. So I don't know if that helps you or not, but yeah. So it's hard for me. It's hard for all of us because I have a habit of going all over the place and going to all the buildings, and I'm not, because I don't want to introduce myself into a team. That we're trying to avoid that. So trying to stay connected, even like that, is a frustration because we can't do what we normally do. And I think that I answered someone today, a comment today, and it's important. The library has to gently help patrons know that what was likely normal a year ago is not going to be normal for us for a long time. And that is not easy, not for the person receiving that information and not for us having to deliver it, because we can't say specifically what we mean, right? And so we're still all working it week by week, sometimes day by day. And I think all I can do is ask the folks out there to trust us, to be deliberate, to be conscientious, and to be thinking about this, trying to do everything we're accomplishing with the safety and well-being of everyone involved at the top of our consideration. And I think we're providing pretty good library service along with that. It just doesn't look and feel the same to many people, and they miss that as much as they miss other things. And I'm sorry we aren't able to do better than that. So, thank you for asking. Any other questions? Director's report.
I have a question about the 1619 project exhibit. So we had planned, not the reading, but we had planned to have that as an exhibit before closing, right?
That's correct.
Will that be planned for if we get to phase 5? Is that something that would be revisited?
It actually was up before we closed, and it is still up now.
Yeah.
And when we will figure out when we know better about opening. It's convenient because it is not in a normal exhibit space, so we don't have conflicts for it. So it is very likely that will continue. And we still have a booking with Nicole Hannah-Jones that was canceled, where we were bringing her to speak at Rackham. We have a tentative date in November, but who knows about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I have another question about tax forms. I had run into someone who was saying how he relies on the library to access tax forms, and I think had requested for them to be printed. How did we handle a later tax season?
Two ways. Tax forms are available in the vestibules for pickup. The printed tax forms that are provided by the IRS, they're there. And so that's how we've handled that. So people can come in and pick them up at their convenience. So they're there. Yep.
Okay. And then if you don't mind, just one last question was, so with the heat being so hard on folks, and then, with different power outages around the city, I think the community is just really missing the library as a physical space. And I heard about Habitat for Humanity has a fan program available. Are there ways that we're still coordinating with folks who we've partnered with in the past when these things happen, when there's like a heat advisory or
we're not able to provide a cooling center location right now.
We weren't before, right? I think we're
yes,
just
we were a cooling center location, not a 24/7 cooling center location, but our open hours, we were a cooling center, and we're a warming center in the winter as well. So that has been a miss. That has been something we have felt, because we know people in our community who do not have air conditioning, who are older, who have health conditions, who relied on the library's air conditioning, and we are not able to have them in. I had not heard of any. I did not hear of a fan program. It's the first I've known about that.
I think it's new. It was Kathy Wyatt from the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department is delivering fans with, and there's a fund at Habitat for Humanity that's handling the fan purchases.
So is the Sheriff's Department delivering them? Because that would be okay. So I have not heard of that. I think that's great. So
I think I missed that. There's a worry for for folks who generally use especially the downtown library as a safe space. And I've lost power a couple of times too, and I always thought, like, if only I could go to Traverwood. But there's still ways that we still support the community with the Wi-Fi access is still available. Parking lots, right? That we
and the porches. I talked to a person this morning who's been using the Wi-Fi on our porch. This is a person who lives unconventionally by choice, and uses Delana Center once or twice a week for showers, and eats there on a routine basis, but sleeps out and uses our Wi-Fi. And so I talked to that person today about the experience, and of course that person would like to be inside the library and not able to offer that, but the conversation was amicable and open, and helped me to understand what was available, what his choices were, and his own personal choices or his business, but it was like, what is the array? So the services are clearly there right now in the community. It's more about, how do people feel about being in a certain place. But I think the pandemic definitely revealed in the community how much need there is. And even though it's a relatively wealthy community, because of its geography, there are still many people who've lived here for 40 years who don't have air conditioning. It was never in their homes. And so they've lived without it. And now, because of age and condition, that is much harder for them, just because of breathing. And I feel for them. I know that when we can have people back in the building, the use of the spaces for people's health and well-being and a place to go and be and relax, I think we'll see a lot of that right away, because people are just ready to not be at home.
Yeah.
And the library is considered safe and welcoming and clean. And I think people will want to be at the library.
Okay, thank you, Josie. Do we have any other questions for Josie and her extraordinary report of our staff going through extraordinary lengths to meet?
We just wanted to bring this out because these aren't the people. Some of these people may be doing some AADL TV events, but most of the people doing this work with holes are not people and not faces you ever see. And so we wanted to make sure you saw and know about the whole of the work that's going on at the library. Because I've had a couple people, I know you've had a couple people say that they should get a rebate on their taxes because the library is not open. And so I think, in answering that, there are people working at the library 7 days a week. And this is the work a lot of those people are doing. And I just want to bring it out and bring it up that we've got a lot going on in an effort to keep people able to use the public library. So, thank you.
Great. Any other questions for Josie? All right, thank you, Josie. Let's move on to old business with an update on construction projects from Len, please.
Good evening.
Hi, Lynn.
Hello. Lynn, I'll answer your question really quick about the O'Neill payment. So we've had, since the project started for the branch meeting rooms, we've had 14 pay apps. And for the 4th floor meeting room, we've had 7 pay apps. And so that payment in June would have been a combination. I want to say it was 3 different payments that they submitted a pay application for, plus the documentation to back it up that they've paid or been invoiced by the contractor. And so I think that was 3 payments for whichever apps they were. I know it was 14 and 7 because I put them in this month.
It was, yeah.
So that's what that payment was for. So the update on the projects. So the last meeting, you guys approved the resolution to increase the scope at Traverwood. So for the program room doors, we're working on the hardware, the fabrication for the track system, the outdoor storage room that's in the garage. We're just kind of looking at the block wall, some submittals on what type of door we're going to use, a few of those things. So that probably the work should start here in a few weeks to get that working. We have met on the generator. We're with the architects and engineers on the generators for where we would put them at each location. So we're still kind of finalizing some of that and getting those documents ready to go to bid. And that's the big stuff for the ongoing projects. And then you have a resolution tonight for the 4th floor meeting room for equipment, because that project's pretty much done with the exception of a couple punch list items, which are some window shades, that type of thing. There's some seals that need to go on a door, but that project's probably 95% complete, not counting the equipment. Are there any questions for the ongoing stuff we have?
I've got one, Len. On the generators for the branches, I continue to be concerned about investing in gasoline generators at this sort of moment where we're trying to look to a more sustainable future. I know we've talked about this before. Last time I think we talked about, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the terminology, where you're drilling into the earth in order to get natural cooling and heating power. But I continue to be troubled at the idea of making a large investment in technology that we know, if we want to sort of move towards battling climate change, we don't want to invest in it now. We've got lots of ways we are invested. And I wanted to be upfront about that, because I know we talked about it before and you've been going forward with that work. But I do have some concerns about that. I don't know if other trustees share any of those concerns, or if this is just me. So I'd be interested in hearing from other folks.
Well, what we're proposing is natural gas. So it's they're not gasoline, they're not diesel. And one of the things we keep falling back on when we've met with our DTE rep, they're not going to be off of coal until 2050. And so the second we go off the grid that we're paid for every day, we would be cleaner than what we buy from DTE right now until 2050. Because the natural gas is cleaner and more efficient than what we purchase on the market today from DTE. And there is no, every time I look into it or read another thing about DTE and where they're going to move with some of the plants, that 2050 is staying right there. So that's 30 years from now before we can purchase clean energy that's not coal driven.
And we did meet, Lynn and Eli and I met this past week in Zoom with Missy Stoltz from the city's climate action staffing, along with representatives from Michigan Saves, which is a statewide 501c3 group that helps fund installations of solar installations. And we talked through with them what we would have to operate one building. And it's not within the scope of what they're able to accomplish at all. And they understood why the library was making the decision it was making at this point in time with generators. So I want you to know we've talked to the people in town who are working for the 2030 carbon neutrality effort. And while the library's done many things with its sustainability efforts in its buildings, in this particular case, it's not going to be feasible for us to operate our buildings with solar by 2030.
And we are looking for the long term as well. When we met with the city, we let them know we were planning on kind of future proofing this to where if power's out for a week, the buildings will be able to run for a week. We looked at some of the solar battery options, and they really are. That's a 24-hour solution. And so we're looking for kind of that disaster planning, right? So we're kind of geared towards, we want to be here for every patron and the community when they're out. And so our goal would be to be able to run for a week on end. If we have a large ice storm in the winter, we'll be able to go for week after week and just be able to keep the library open for, to keep people warm, to charge devices. And I won't say business as usual. If a neighborhood next to us is without power, it'd be very different. But since I've been here, I've heard about the ice storm. I think it was in 12 or 13 where we had a lot of people in the downtown library because it was the only place with power, and people were lining the floors. So that's kind of what our goal is there, is to provide that service no matter what.
And you're basically saying that the technology doesn't make it possible right now, or that it's cost prohibitive, or all the above?
I'm sorry, say that again.
And so the technology doesn't exist for us to be able to do that?
We did ask, so the electrical engineer that's on this, just like this, we're very open with conversations. We said, tell us what other options there would be, and if there was a solar option with batteries. And he was kind of quiet. And the response was, I think it was 800 panels plus a huge addition onto the building to house the batteries. He said, if you really want an answer, because we need 250 kilowatts to run heating and cooling, lights, computers, that type of thing. So you have the building comforts as well. So it was around 800 panels. We don't have any place to even put them if we wanted to go that path. And there would be the addition to house all the batteries, even if it was possible.
Victoria, you asked if you're the only person thinking about it, and no, definitely
yeah, sorry.
not.
I'm sure I'm not.
No. I didn't mean to suggest that. I just wanted to respond to it, your request to hear from others. I think often of the time when we were first talking about the generators, when the patron comment was Scott Trudeau, who was why are we investing in this? And it made me think, why are we investing in this? And so my personal opinion is that every time we have to make a decision, I think it's good. I mean, we wrote that into the strategic plan that we wanted to be conscientious about this issue, that every time we have a chance to make a decision, that we ask ourselves what the best thing we can do is. So I think we're on the same page that we always want to be asking the questions, and we would never want staff to think that they should just go for the cheapest thing without you know what I mean? We kind of talked about that last time when we talked about this. And so I completely agree with you that we should always be asking the question, but I also acknowledge that technology is what it is right now, especially with the storage for solar. So, maybe that would be a different answer to the question, the next time we have to make a big decision in a few years when technology is different, I don't know, but I support your asking the question for sure.
Are there any additional questions for Len?
Can't hear you.
Oh, are there any additional questions for Len? All right, well, thank you, Len. Thanks for watching out in all of our buildings and updating us. Thanks for having all the discussions with DTE and walking us through what our options are. And should technology change, let us know if you hear anything different. I mean, we're here to learn too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Great, thanks. All right, let's move on to our first resolution for the evening. This is an item of action. Can I get a motion to for this resolution? And a volunteer to read the resolution too.
We don't have Jim to read the resolutions.
I know.
What are we gonna do?
Sorry, I saw Kareen move. Did someone second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you.
I'll read.
Thank you, Kareen.
All right, so the board resolves as follows. Can everyone hear me? Okay. To increase the project scope of the fourth floor meeting room project in the downtown library, to include audio, visual, and control room equipment, to authorize the capital project funds project increase of $99,127, that all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded.
And I should say that Lynn spoke with Cindy Richmond about this prior to putting the resolution in the board packet. So financially, we did our homework too.
Great discussion.
And so was this not in the original plan just because we didn't anticipate needing to have this? Can you just kind of explain a little bit about the background of why?
I can. Yeah, I can. So when we started the project, we knew we were going to do the build out. We had we hired a firm to do the design work on it, and when this started, we didn't have the budget for it, and we actually received that probably 2 months ago. So we knew we were going to have to add some money. We didn't know how much it was going to be. So when we started the project, if you remember, we had the O'Neill amount for the construction work, and then we added some equipment money. And when we had the original resolution for the project, we said we might not have enough money for equipment, but we were still working on that part. So now we have everything. So the conversation I had with Cindy Richmond was, sometimes we purchase equipment that's outside of capital projects. It might be a capital outlay. And so I wanted to make sure we were doing it as part of this project. And her advice was, yes, do it as part of the project because it's going to depreciate with that improvement. So it just made sense to come and do it this way. This is everything for the fourth floor. This will be, when this gets done, it'll be operational.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Lynn, I didn't quite follow that. So I think what you're saying is this isn't that we're offering new functionality or we're really offering a different service, but instead that this is the funding mechanism that we weren't quite sure what the dollar amount would be, mm-hmm. But that this is not a scope change in that we're not trying to add new functionality. It's just that this is what it costs and we need a resolution because we want to take it out of this particular fund. Do I understand that correctly?
That is correct. Yes. So we had the construction amount for the project for the build out. We added some equipment money, knowing we would probably have to add to this. But yes, this is us saying we don't want to purchase outside board approval. You've already approved this project. To do it any other way wouldn't make a lot of sense. So it needs to come in front of you guys for scope increase because it's going to be tied to that project either way.
And if we didn't spend this money, we'd be losing the value that we've already spent because this is integral to what we're trying to achieve with that meeting room.
It is. I mean, we usually purchase equipment out of outlay. So this, it's one way or the other. We can make small purchases but it makes sense. This should be, since it's a capital project that's depreciable, it should all be purchased together because there's going to be an asset tag on this, and it'll, everything in that room The space itself will all have an asset tag tied to this project and tied to that resolution, so it needs to be together. So we all did our job.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Shall we move on to the roll call vote then?
Okay, Trustee Ackman,
Yes.
Trustee Green,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Leha. Oh, he's not here. Trustee Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Song,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbroek.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Len.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. To follow up to last month's meeting, we have an item of discussion on Black Lives Matter. We had a rigorous discussion. Josie, remind me, do I need to make a motion to bring this? Or is it just an item of?
It's just an item of discussion. I mean, I think that the conversation was that you wanted us to stay a discussion at the board level for the foreseeable future. And so there's not an action item. I think you saw the update in the director's report. What also wasn't in the director's report is that we did go forward and we've removed the terminology security in describing our safety staff. So our safety staff is now our safety staff. They're very happy about it, very pleased. It was a welcome change. And so we're going through making sure that all of our internal documents as well as our public facing have removed the word security. And so, safety will replace. So we've already gone forward with that. So this was one place I wanted to let you know, because we had been talking about it and then it came up. And so I was able to tell you then that we were already talking about how to do this better. Mm-hmm. And because our safety staff are not police force. They're not asked to act as police force. They shouldn't. And so the name alluded to something that wasn't quite right. So now we have safety. And that is what they're about, safety and well-being and the experience, the positive experience that people have in the library. So.
Well, you know, with Congressman John Lewis passing, his recent passing, I've been giving a lot of thought about his directive to speak out, and cause good trouble. So I sense this is a path that the library has followed for quite some time. And I'm interested in hearing what other trustees are thinking about as a follow-up to last month's meeting, and where the library has, how the library has responded, or any reflections of your own.
He said to make good trouble.
That's
and
right.
get in the way, be in the way. And I think we've been in the way probably more over the years than we really thought of ourselves as making good trouble. But when you go back and look at it, perhaps we have. But being in the way is probably more what we've done with the type of programming we've had, the people we've invited to speak, that we've had protests and that we've stood up to that. We even have people objecting to our involvement in supporting Black Lives Matter, and our library's outspoken calling out Black racism, and that we are saying there is such a thing as systemic racism in our country, and that we want to be a part of changing that. We do have patrons who tell us that that's not true, that we're racist to say so. So, I mean, we're getting that too. So in that way, you should know, the library is following the path of Mr. Lewis, making good trouble. At least in the point of view from some people, we definitely are making good trouble. So.
Josie,
as you were talking.
Go ahead, Victoria, I'm sorry.
No, sorry, thanks. I was just thinking as you were speaking about how awesome it is that the library is on the right side on this argument in terms of pushing forward that this is not just a narrative, but a truth of systemic and structural racism. And as you were talking about that, I was thinking about the little bit that I've seen from that has come to the board about folks who don't agree that this is true in our society or in our library. And I was wondering if our staff are doing okay who are hearing that from patrons. They're probably not hearing it face to face in the sense of feeling attacked, but whether there's any support that the staff need who might be hearing this from our patrons whom we're trying to serve in most ways, just not in that sort of false narrative. Does that make sense?
Yep. And what I told the executive committee earlier is and something you should know, even though there are people who are adamant that there is no such thing as systemic racism against Black people in this country, and they are saying it when they come to a library vestibule to whomever is working with them on the monitor. So they are, and we're supporting those staff members. And people have done an amazing, remarkable professional job of handling that. I would want you to know that in all the years that I've done this job, the negative feedback from the public on any of the issues we have facing us right now, whether we're open or not, whether people can get what they want when they want it or not, whether or not we're involved in Black Lives Matter work, that the number of people coming at the library from a negative point of view is so low. It's so low. And it's never been this low in all my time. And so I think you should know that. So unfortunately, what happens is when you have a person who won't let that go, and they make a point of saying it every time they interface with the library, it seems like it's more. It seems bigger. And it's not. It's not. It's. I think you should know that about the community. People are supportive of what the library is doing. They've said so. There's not a big pushback on that at all. So, and where the staff are having to deal with difficult, confrontational people, it's not different than in the past on any other matter where somebody was difficult or confrontational. And so there is support. Staff are getting it right away. So thank you for asking. It's not fun, but they're doing a good job.
Josie, are we?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead, Dharma. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that, I mean, I've been impressed with the different initiatives, in particular, the ones that are seem very focused on increasing representation and giving voice. Mm-hmm. So the oral history project, and then I was just looking at the archive project too. I think that those things are really important. I think that you've seen an overwhelming, I see Black Lives Matter signs everywhere in our community. Yeah, still, of course, hearing about real problems. So I just think it's so important to engage in real action. And I'm also really happy to see the item on our agenda tonight about looking at policies and such, because I think that's in the same keeping. Mm-hmm. So really.
There's a Pulp article from last week, and it's about a Zoom conversation of local leaders in the local arts community in Washtenaw County about Black artists and how systemic racism has kept people from being able to have their art seen or be promoted. And the library, a staff person from the library, put that Zoom on in Pulp and wrote about that conversation. And I listened to it all today. And because we were launching our effort for Black artists, I was very interested to see and hear what local leaders in that field who are Black wanted people to hear. And so in our own way, we're trying to be that place where one can go to hear a lot of voices. And I think we're trying it on so many fronts. But I recommend you go, if you have time, and listen to that too.
Josie, I was struck by what you said when you were saying that the security department or unit became safety, and that was a welcome change to the staff and they had wanted it. And it made me think about the way that people feel that they don't always like have a chance to say or have like the opportunity to, sort of things are the way they are. And so like sometimes I think like someone might want something to change, but think that there isn't a way to change it. And I think that my perception and my understanding and belief is that the library is trying to be the best possible library that it can be, not only for our community, but also for everyone who works there. And I feel how much the library loves the people who work for it. But I think that like it might also be another question of like, well, what else do people want or need that they haven't felt like they could ask for, or what else could change to make things better? And I don't mean that it is like a criticism of the way things are run, do you know what I mean? Like that, but just that like I attended something recently, and like the advice to, it was like for teachers, and the advice to the teachers is like, if you ask, then you might get to know. Like, and so I think like it makes me, I know we're going to talk about policy in a little bit, and I think that's excellent. And that's our chance to sort of shape the experience of people who come to us from outside the organization. But I also was hoping that we could do some things to try to focus also on how it is to be in the organization, no matter what your identity. And I know like recently you all attended bias interruption training. So I think that is like an excellent start. That is like a very helpful thing for a community to engage in. But I think there could be other ways to help, the library community continue to be a supportive place for everyone to work. So I guess I was hoping that we could somehow figure out how to, formally request that. Like I know we usually in the director's evaluation every year, we sometimes like have made suggestions that have resulted in some changes like that. So that's like one time we've done that as a board. It could potentially, like internal structure could potentially be worked into this committee charge. Like I haven't seen the charge yet for the committee, so I don't know what that is. Or Lynn, you have thoughts about how you wanted to shape that? And I know we'll talk about it next, but that's just sort of what's been on my mind.
The one thing I can say to you, Jamie, is the security, dropping that word, it was one of those situations where everybody went, well, duh, yeah, and it had been that forever. I mean, there's no one who works at the library who, and some people have worked at the library 35 years, who can remember when it wasn't called that. And so I think the conversation around changing it was easy. It was easy. And so I think that the staff can see that can happen, and this is how easy that can happen. So what might else come up? And honestly, all of this that's happening, I think a tremendous amount of good's going to come from a lot of pain. And we'll just take it as it comes. And I'm a deliberate, pragmatic, practical person. I want change, but I don't want people damaged in the process unnecessarily. And so we'll take it as it comes. So.
Jamie, are you? Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to tell you that I think people will speak up about other things. I don't think there's a fear of speaking up.
I just wonder if Jamie, and maybe I'm just speaking to my own experience in other arenas outside of the board in the library, but I mean, I think that like people are feeling like they can say things right now because of the moment that we're in, and how do we avoid like, the ossification that can set in when the moment,
goes away. Right.
I think,
right.
that's my concern too.
Right. Like how can you kind of start to try to build in that ability, like make it more structural rather than like as a symptom of a moment in time, for sure.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this to you all. You're doing it right now. You're leading, you're talking about it. And I think that having leaders who talk about it, leaders who say it's important, leaders who say it's a priority, how ossification is battled. People in my job who say, we've taken this path, we're going down it, we're not looking back. We're going to keep making change, and we're going to keep calling out the things that should be changed, and we're going to not back off. I think those are the decisions that have to be made right now that keep the momentum going once the emotion has gone away, if that's fair. So, or the spotlight or whatever. I mean, I from my own opinion, I think that's part of what has to happen is leadership, and you're demonstrating that.
And I just want to give a shout out for Jamie, who I think was the first person to make sure that this got on our agenda last time and kept it on.
Yep.
So thank you, Jamie.
Are we running out of time on this, or is there? So one thing that I've been thinking about in terms of this idea of like how do we keep doing the work after the moment has passed. And one thing I've been thinking a lot about and reading a fair bit about is like there's a lot of emphasis right now on these sort of like educational sort of nonfiction books of like how to be anti-racist kinds of books. And that the learning that you can get from those books only gets you so far. Like this is a library, we have fiction, we have film, we have all of these other kinds of ways for people to learn that also can represent joy and like the positive elements of a full life. And I think, a lot of now is maybe not the moment to emphasize the joy, but I think maybe it's always good to be reminded. And so I think about, what books are happening at story times, what what kinds of opportunities are there in sort of the craft moments, like all of the different kinds of activities, even while they're all happening online. What can we be doing to increase representation sort of across the spectrum, where we're not just focusing on like, this is what structural racism is, which is important. It's very important. But I would love for us to look at like the bigger picture of representation as we move forward. And I'm sure you already have staff doing that. I'd love, if you can speak to that at all now, I'd love to hear about it, or just hear about it in the future.
I think that the collection at AADL has been is representative for a very long time. And the people who have been selecting that material, particularly for children, have been very careful, at least for the last 20 years, to make sure that it's very representative of the community, and also the how to be a person in a world, in a bigger world. It's so interesting how a book that by an author that's 30 years old and is beloved, right? Suddenly you look at it and you go, oh my, right? Oh my. And that has happened a lot for a number of people, including me. And it makes us think differently about how we're choosing going forward. And that is a very good thing. It isn't that we chose badly. It's that we must think about how this affects children going forward. And do we need that book in story time or this or whatever? And the answer is, generally no. So I think it's great that you bring it up, because it lets me say how much attention people are paying now to that right now in the system, about how representative are we and who does story times, what the books are, what the crafts are, the concepts around the crafts. How does a child living in a certain condition even know what those items are in that craft project? And do they have access to them at all to do this at home? And what's our responsibility to make sure that what we're doing is something that's accessible to all children. I agree with you completely. And it's not something that it's not something everybody's always thought about this way, but we're doing it now, and we're doing it better. A conversation came up today about a book that was chosen for something, and we realized it needs to be in the library, but we don't need to put it in that hot spotlight. And this is why, right? So yeah, it's happening. Yeah, it's happening. So thank you, Molly.
Thank you.
I mean, we'll just keep doing better. We'll be consciously doing better. Yes. So I'm going to say this so that you know, since this is the conversation you're having, the library's had a Black studies collection since the late 1960s. And it was one of the first collections of its kind in a public library, and especially a library our size. And it was curated and selected by African-American librarians who were on our staff, which was even in that period of time pretty remarkable in and of itself that people were here working for us who were Black. It's been interesting how there's been a different notion about the point of that collection and its appropriateness as an isolated collection within the library. So there's been a lot of conversation about even how that's curated now, how it's selected for, how it's presented, and what should be in it, and what's the scope. So something that has always been considered a positive and a progressive aspect of our collection now is being looked at with new eyes and a different lens and a different time to make sure that it's not harmful in an unintended way that we can control. If that's helping you, and we're doing that as well. Thank you.
Well, Josie, I had one thought was, in the absence of doing this programming, I wonder if the criticism is really coming from the idea that this is replacing something that would normally otherwise happen at the library. But we are not in normal times. I don't think we've seen anything normal even before Black Lives Matter really picked up steam nationally in our consciousness. Can you speak to how I always feel like the library is responsive to our community's needs in all of our programming? You know what I mean? Like I wonder if people are speaking to missing our festivals or
oh yes,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. People definitely miss being in a space together as part of a library event, whether it's outside or inside. And we are here, and yet people are very honest about understanding why we're not doing it, and probably wouldn't attend if we did. But they're very clear that they miss it. And so for us, and was what Jamie was saying earlier, it's looking more and more likely that we won't be having programming for more time than we expected. So then how do we bring that to the community digitally? Because we're not going to be able to bring it in real time in person. So we're talking about that too, and how to do more of that, and those authors, those people who do lectures, people who do performances, if they're willing to do them that way, and are they available, and how can we do that? We're definitely looking at how to do more of that, because I think we're going to have to. So.
Can I add something for just a moment?
Yeah, I'm going to turn on the light while you do that.
One thing that's been really striking is that we can't usually do book discussions when we're open and have them be successful, because one person can ruin it so easily for the entire group. But on Zoom, that can't happen. It's been kind of amazing. The ability to have a substantive discussion. First of all, you don't get trolls really showing up because it's not as satisfying to them. And they know that they can be easily kicked out. So in some ways, we are able to do meaningful discussions via Zoom that would never work in person. I mean, we had a 200-person discussion of white fragility. That does not happen in the real world. So there are some opportunities that are opened through the other challenges that we're facing that are enabling us to do things that we wouldn't otherwise have been able to do as successfully.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to emphasize that, when there's a program like this or an effort to this and to this extent where the board itself is committing itself to, further committee work and unbiased training, that it's a reflection of community needs, and that it's not at a loss or I think it's a community benefit. Like the work is a community benefit and not a threat, or like there's like something is not replacing, this work is not replacing something else. It's just,
No.
how the library works.
Yeah, and I think the unconscious bias training that was held last year for management and then again for the whole staff, I think that that was well received by the staff. I mean, all the feedback, so it was done well. And I think that what's happened is for the staff, for many people on staff, particularly those who are white, the unconscious bias training brought them to a place of thinking that they might not have otherwise. And now with the conversations about systemic racism, you're able to ask yourself safely in your own mind, what is my reaction to this? What is my reaction to that? And where did that come from? And how do I act on that? And how does that stop someone else's opportunity? And I think that next question, how does that stop someone else's opportunity, is where this has led us. And I see it in the conversations around what programs to do, what books to talk about. I mean, the books that we're discussing, in a book discussion group, these are not easy conversations. Even if you're doing them with your friends, people you've known a long time, because they're self-revealing. You can't have a conversation honestly about white fragility without acknowledging bias. And so being able to do that, and I think that we're building on the unconscious bias training by some of and we had our own internal conversation about the book too, that wasn't a public conversation. So we've done that as well, where we had staff conversations about some of these titles in addition to the public conversations. That's allowed people to work through things so that they can consider leading some of these groups. I mean, the person who handles these book discussions has to be somebody who's really willing to expose their own biases and show themselves in that way and deal with whatever questions are asked or comments are made. It's not easy. This is tough, but it has to be to get through this. It's not as tough as what has happened to people who've been held back, who've been the targets of racism. Nothing that we have to go through is going to be that tough. And so that's what I keep saying. You can do this because it's not as hard as what other people have had to deal with. And so we're going to keep right on going. And I hope you see this result in time, and the programming, the collections, the attitudes toward the entire community. And if we can help bring awareness to people that, unintended or not, bias is there, and we need to help change that.
Great. Are there any additional thoughts before we move on to the next item of discussion?
I guess I just want to say that I was glad to see included in your list of opportunities you've been promoting, the graphic design work. I think that's an example of something we've talked about on the board a little bit, that when we put out a call for proposals or a call for work, that we have never had an explicit process of determining that we got the pool that is representative of what's possible for whatever the work is. We tend to be like, well, we got the 2 applications and we'll take one of those 2, and or like this person from a graphic design perspective is awesome and we want this person to do it, and that can sometimes like feed itself in terms of seeing the same types of people get rewarded and stuff. So it takes like an explicit decision to want to be different, I think. So I'm glad to see it in that sense, because the summer game, for example, that stuff gets all over town, so it's so that's an example of work that is very broadly perceived and seen by the community. So if that can be more representational, that would have a very big impact, I would think, and it's not, it's different than a program. I think it's not always like the first thing you think of necessarily. So I thank you for thinking of it, and thank you for putting that out there.
We've had a complaint about this, Jane. So it's important that you know that. Right away, someone said it was racist of the library to be this specific about soliciting Black artists for this work. And I think I want to say that that for white people, where it gets uncomfortable is where it matters. And when it's uncomfortable is when we should start thinking to ourselves about, why is this making me uncomfortable? Because we think we're going to lose something. We think something's going to get taken away from us. And we have to turn it around and think about what we're making possible. So what I encouraged this person to do was to reach out into their network and identify Black artists whose work they know, to submit proposals for this, and then to celebrate with the library the work of those who are chosen, and to be a part of making a good choice, making something possible for people that might not have been possible in the past, because we explicitly said this particular opportunity is not all exhibits at the library, not all art prints at the library, not all the graphic work that's done for the library, but in the specific instance for the banners, the art on the fence, yes. Yes. And that we should not let our feelings of oh my, and call it racism when it's not racism, to pull something like that out. So that did happen. And I responded to that earlier today. So there might be more of that, but you should know about that. It didn't surprise me, but it disappointed me. So.
All right, well, this board doesn't disappoint you though, Josie.
No.
We are
not. No, you do not. You are. So.
Do we have any remaining comments on this? All right, well, thank you for another rigorous discussion on.
Thank you.
Oh, this is a really amazing time in our community and here and beyond. And I think it's a good opportunity to really learn about who we are, what our priorities are, and what we can do to uplift others as an institution of learning and sharing, right, Josie?
Correct. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, let's move on the agenda to new business. We have another item of discussion, which is a new committee tasked with reviewing our policies, board policies. And this is nothing that we'll be voting on, but I think when I spoke with Corrine and Josie earlier on the executive committee, this is something that I think Jamie had brought up, and I had reached out to a couple board members to see if you'd be willing, if you'd be open to me appointing you to this committee, because we're so good at committee work. I think we're this unique board where we thrive on committee work. So should I just make the appointments, Josie, or just?
I think you need to discuss a charge and appointments. If you want to make them, you can tonight. A charge and a duration, as far as because we had it as an item of discussion, but you can definitely do this, and then have a vote. Your committee appointments have to be approved by the board.
Yeah. So let me describe a little bit. So just to review what we had talked about last month was actively looking at either hiring policies or patron policies, and looking for biases. And I was thinking that it would be meaningful and appropriate and timely to take a look at our policies when it comes to patrons. And if we can take this review with staff over the next 6 months, just be really aggressive about it, and have a report by the end of the calendar year. We did such good work when we did the strategic plan, in a year with staff feedbacks, and close staff involvement. I feel like this is compelling work, and that we can do this in a really timely manner. And Josie has said that this is something that staff can respond to. So if we have a 6-month review on patron and on how we interact with patrons, and is it building use? Is that how we would?
Public behavior in the libraries and building use. Yeah, public use. Yep.
And this would, I hope this will also inform how we reopen too. I mean, there's going to be a lot of new changes anyways as we, serve the community during a pandemic. And we're already doing this careful review and how we interact with folks, and how and defining what our expectations are of staff to do this work. So I really believe we can do this. And so it would be appointing 3 trustees. I don't know what the time commitment would be, but I can't see it being beyond what folks already do, not that much beyond what we've done in the past with committee work. And I was hoping to appoint Jamie, Dharma, and Corrine on this committee, should you so accept it. So if you should accept the challenge. And then there was a discussion on whether there should be a committee chair. That doesn't have to be decided tonight or anytime soon. And apparently it's not actually really necessary, but we can have this discussion later on too, because I think it was pointed out that Josie would need a good point of contact just to coordinate information and meetings. But this is an item of discussion. This is what I envision. If you have any feedback on how you would, if there's anything that you would like to see in this charge, this is your chance.
Yes, I guess I'd like to be more clear on what the deliverable would be. And then also just speaking of inputs to this, I guess I would like maybe part of the work of this committee would be to create a framework for evaluation. I wouldn't want to just dive right in and read, and I don't know, I just feel like I need some kind of a tool or a rubric, and I don't know if that's something for the board to discuss or.
So similar to what Josie's already taken a look at on changing the security team to being a public safety. So taking a review of what we already do, and coming up with a report at the very end and recommendations to see if we actually have to make any policy changes that would come to vote.
Well, in the past, I can say to you that in the past, what we've done is we've taken sections of the policy manual and reviewed them periodically. And in between those reviews, anytime state law changes that impacts on a policy, it comes to you, the board, for a review and to change the policy to stay in compliance with state law. We look at this particular part of the policy manual, the public behavior and rules, more often probably than some of the others because of the laws about weapons, so all sorts of things that open carry in the state of Michigan, all that kind of stuff. So we look at this section, but how we've done this is we've taken a section of the policies and reviewed them holistically, and we've made sure that any changes we might be considering are legal, that we actually can do it. And then the library staff works with the board committee to talk through the implications of changes, about what, if that changes, what else changes, so that you have the whole picture. As far as a structure, we can pull policies from other institutions for examples and guidance. We can always do that. But we don't have a formal review structure because of the way we've done this in the past in sections. So how do you review the HR policies? How do you review the finance policies? Generally, you have people who are experts in those areas working with you as you go through. In the public service policies and the public behavior policies, it's primarily the staff and the board working and making sure that the legal aspects of it are adhered to. So
I guess it's more, how do we make sure that we're asking the right questions about any implicit biases that are in there that, like, clearly maybe we haven't noticed till now. And so I'm assuming that, like, all of a sudden I don't have this knowledge, even though I'm like consuming information like crazy. I just would like to have.
No, I think you're right. And I think how we're looking at it now is going back and reading it to see, are we noticing it? And if we see it, we would bring it to you and say, this has to change, or this has to change. And then our experience with implementing it, how successful is it? How difficult is it? What would we change? What would we recommend that we change? Because it's evolved over a period of time. And so, yes, I think by looking at it in terms of implicit bias and is exactly what we were thinking about doing as well. So.
It makes me think, Dharma, that we need like a Bechdel test for anti-racism that we are applying as we go through. So I think that would be like an excellent thing to discuss the first, when we get together as a group. Like, how do we want to approach this, and what are some options for, as we review, like the lens that we want to take and the criteria that we're evaluating for. I also am struck by like the fact that we're not open, so no one's behaving in any way in our buildings other than picking up materials and turning around and leaving. And so that makes me wonder, like, what about the library is only physical? And like, if we make changes to like the way that we expect people to be, if it only applies to their body in space in our buildings, what does it mean to have focused on that or make those changes? But that's like a little bit of a like theoretical way to maybe like be thinking about our library. It's just like, I'm struck by how we still are such a place and such a thing, even though we are not having people in our buildings. So then that makes me wonder about the scope of the project potentially. I see Victoria's.
Yeah, I was thinking about people who are interacting in a library community, but it's virtual, and what policies you might need. You know, what comments cannot, you know, how do you respond to comments? There's no physical threat. People aren't sleeping, some of these policies that we have, but what, are there any specific sort of virtual interactions that our policies don't currently cover, but which experience might show that we need?
Yeah, a little bit like Eli was talking about how it's easier to conduct a sensitive discussion this way. So it's like clear that there are affordances of the type of interaction that we're having that are they're guided by like people with a lot of experience but like, how do you sort of approach that more formally potentially?
Seems like there might be some value in having policies for the kind of Zoom event moderation that is already happening, so that if someone objects, they're, the staff who did the silencing or whatever it was is backed up by policy. Maybe those already exist for online interactions, but given how quickly this all came together, they might not. I was also thinking about the question earlier about like how do we make sure we're making these policies the best that we can? And I wonder if it might be worth looking around at whether there are some best practices. I mean, I know that the AADL is way ahead of everyone else in a lot of, there might not be best practices yet, but maybe they exist in a different discipline that also deals with public spaces. That might be a useful reference point.
I was just thinking how exciting it would be if what happens out of this is that AADL writes the best practices that industry follows. That would be fabulous.
Pressure, anyone? Are there? I know the charges is vague, and it's because this is new work. It'll be a different way of doing a policy review. And I know Dharma earlier had asked before the meeting, how is this going to be timed with our own training, unbiased training? I don't know if Josie, if you can speak to that.
I wanted to ask you because about when did you want that for the board to occur as part of a board meeting, or do you want that as a special meeting? And is there a time between now and the end of the year where you feel that most of you would be available? Because we already know we don't have everybody till likely September. And so I felt like it was important I can try to arrange it. I can arrange it, but I wanted to make sure that it was going to work for most of you.
We do something like asynchronous where we all participate in it separately, or is there a benefit to doing it communally or collaboratively?
I don't know the answer. I know I've talked to people who've done this through work at the university where people did this on their own, interacting with software. And then they were also involved in our project here at the library last fall, and they talked about the worlds of difference in being in the room with people and going through this rather than filling out and getting responses back in a technological form. The experience was very different in quality and impact. And so I was assuming that you wanted to do this as a group with a facilitator, even if it's Zoom. That was my assumption, and I should have made that assumption.
Yeah, I think oftentimes it's done for institutions as a group, but that people are also supposed to do it individually because then they have a better understanding of how they exist within the dynamic of that institution. So I wouldn't throw that away for anyone who hasn't had an individual training on that, because it is helpful in sort of understanding your own biases and how you approach and see things and understanding other people's perspectives. So it doesn't have to be mandatory, but if it's available, often those who offer the institutional training might also offer the individual.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So any thoughts about timing this? I think if this committee is charged to start next month, and if we can coordinate a training at the same time sometime next month. I think what we'll be missing Trustee Leha, though. I think he will be absent he's absent July and August. But given how given the timing, I think it would be okay to jumpstart the committee's work. It's because a lot of it in the beginning, it would be probably just information gathering anyways, and speaking with staff and having to do the staff review. And if we did the training in September, then Jim will be back. Is that something that would be doable to folks? I mean, what would the training look like, Josie? Can you?
I can only tell you what the training was that we had. This was an individual who came and worked through a lot of work scenarios with staff and had people break up into groups and work through questions. Most of it was around hiring. If you had a person who'd applied for a job and you had this, and this, what's your reaction to that? And that was what was so helpful. And then the whole staff, she did the same thing, but she chose different examples because most of the people in the room don't hire people, but it's about working with people. We did not have a component to this that was individual training that people could do on their own. I honestly can't even tell you if that was available to us with this or not. I know it is with other trainers. There isn't any way that we can arrange training by next month. I'm positive we can't get that done. So it's September or later. And that's why I was asking.
Okay.
I think the training is more broadly useful to us as a group of people working together than just the committee's work. So it seems like they don't have to coincide exactly. But it's important to do the training. It's also important to do the review. And if we have this goal of completing the review in a certain amount of time, I don't know. I guess I'd be curious if others think it's important to complete the training prior to starting the work.
It seems important to complete it prior to finishing the work. Is like my thought about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. And sometimes starting the work gives us a better understanding of what we need from the training. And I don't think it's the end of the world if we have to ask for an extension because we realize, that we need to look at things
Right. Yeah.
I think September is good for a group training for October.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That helps me. I can go try to work that out, a group training for October. Would you have any objection? Do you want this to be board only, or do you have any objection to it including senior staff, or do you not want that? Or how I'm just asking.
And this is one of those things that would be not facilitated via Zoom. So I wonder whether we want to try a thorough training like that without being in person. So maybe it is better just to go smaller.
That was why I asked the question. So, but in the future, I think, it would be helpful.
Organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, I love the idea of offering whatever we are doing to enrich the knowledge of the board to the staff. But I do wonder, does that mean that whenever they participate with us, they have to publicly?
I mean, I said senior staff.
Do that.
I said senior staff. I didn't say whole staff.
Oh, no, I know, but even
I think it would be unreasonable and unfair to put everybody in that space.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, this is gonna be awkward.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, to understand our training, it would be a training that was a public meeting or would we have to divide into smaller groups?
If you did this as you would have to do this as an open meeting because of the number and of what you do. You would have to do it that way. Yeah. So it is something people can see you doing and listen to you work through. Yep. There's no avoiding that.
That's not scary at all.
There may be one issue with that, in that most of the consultants that we've worked with on this will not allow their events to be recorded or broadcast.
Yeah.
So there may be a challenge associated with that.
So we'll just have to look into it and see what happens.
I wonder.
Not be, and I think that you can talk to the consultants about what is available to us under the circumstances, because you would normally be talking about at least a 1 full day training, right? Which we probably don't want to go through. We would want to go through something shorter.
Right.
Don't necessarily need the small group, discussions where we're like confronting issues and making each other uncomfortable, like that. We're about to undergo a policy review, right?
It's very specific purposes.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm sure they can offer something that works for us while at the same time explaining, what normally occurs over a more extensive, longer training.
Yeah. Okay. And I will, I'll reach out to the trainers we've used and see what's possible. And then I'll touch back base with the committee when if you appoint them this evening, then I can touch back with the committee about how that looks and what they feel like we should be doing.
So in making the appointment, like we made the appointment for the strategic planning committee, is it I make individual appointments and then each one goes to votes?
You can appoint the committee this evening, and then the board will vote on your appointment. So you can do it as a group.
As a group, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay that I didn't amend the agenda as an item of action.
Karen Wilson would get after me about this and tell me that you absolutely should have amended the agenda to move this to an item of action. But I think someone can move to allow this, and then you can vote to allow this, and then you go forward and do it.
Okay. Everyone, so.
Or you can wait and do this in August.
Let's do that. Let's wait until we can do that in August. Then I can actually, I think it might be. I think it would be more informative for the board to vote on something once I actually write the charge up and then present it as part of the agenda. And
okay.
But this has been very helpful as a discussion. It's been very helpful in helping me understand, how we can be really specific about this work, and what else we need to do and what we need to do to work with staff on this. So let me write this up with Josie and then come back and we'll put it on the agenda for next month to vote. But now that you know who I'd like to appoint, I know we have overachievers on this board. I know you'll probably, once this meeting is done, you'll start Googling best practices on public institutions and unbiased training. So don't let this stop you.
And also know, one of the things to know is that every public institution is doing what we're doing. Okay. They're backing up and looking at everything. So whatever's out there is not going to be what stays out there. And there are some public libraries with some leaders we're familiar with, and I would call those people and say, what are you about to embark on and how are you going about it? Because I know you are, because I know who you are. And I think that's how I will start my work in terms of reaching out to get information from other public libraries. But at the same time, I'll talk to the person who came and did our training and ask about public board specific training.
And you might propose the individual assessments, just so you know.
So what did you say? I'm sorry. That
might propose the individual assessments because that would actually get to the uncomfortable, personal issues. It's like a therapy appointment thing. You do something on the computer and then you talk to someone and they help you work through it. So.
All right. Okay.
I just had one with my library at university is doing them, and it was amazingly helpful. It's very different to talk just about your own situation and the way you approach the world, and privately with one other person. It feels like therapy.
Yeah.
So what organization is doing this, Jamie? What
the program that the university library is doing is the IDI assessment. It's intercultural development, or at the last letter.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that too at MDCR, and I can forward you who we use.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That would be helpful.
Forward who they used, and maybe it's the same org.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for this discussion. And Karen Wilson can rest easy. That
Yeah, I could hear her in my brain.
Yeah.
Getting after me. Yeah.
We didn't miss with parliamentary procedure,
Yes,
Karen.
yes, yes.
We're in good hands. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Let's move on to our last resolution. This is a resolution of thanks to Tim Grimes on his retirement.
I want to read this one.
Do we have a motion?
I motion.
Do we have a motion and a second? I'm sorry. Did we already get? Is Jamie? Are you motion?
I motion.
Okay, and a second.
I'll be the second, and I want to read it.
Okay.
We're very.
I gotta read it. I hope he's listening.
I'm sure he is.
Okay, I got
to Jamie, you're on.
Weirdly sideways. Okay, I'm gonna drag it over so that I'm not staring sideways while I read it. Okay. The board resolves as follows: that it would like to officially thank Tim Grimes upon his retirement for his service as an employee from November 19, 1985 to July 31, 2020 of the Ann Arbor District Library. That all resolutions and parts of resolutions that conflict with the provisions of this resolution are rescinded. Tim is my friend and my neighbor. And one time when I worked at the library, so like circa 2007, I was like, Tim used to make an announcement before every public program in the downtown library that it was like about to happen. And oh, sorry, I hear like an echo of my voice. I had to take my headphones out, so hopefully it's not my fault. But anyway, like Tim's voice would like be in the loudspeaker, and this man who was standing next to me was like, that man has the most incredible voice. His wife just must like love to have him come home at the end of the day and use his voice. I was like really struck by that, because Tim does. He has the most incredible voice, and he's a lovely and wonderful person, and the library's been lucky to have had him all these years. So thank you, Tim.
So I will say what when I came to the library, Tim was in administration in a very, very difficult time and for the library. And Tim had been prior to that, had acted as interim director with a coworker through a period of time. So Tim's understanding and appreciation of AADL is very broad and deep. And because of that, Tim's approach to programming and events has been to seek out all the voices in the community and all the opportunities for people and all the subjects and all, no matter how risky, no matter how edgy, Tim was right there and was able and would stand in front of decisions. And I learned from Tim consequently how to do that in a public library in a good way. He has the most amazing laugh. He doesn't have just a great voice. He has a laugh that carries, you could hear it all over the downtown library if the right doors were open. And if you heard Tim laugh, you couldn't help but smile. And I think many people on staff know how much Tim contributed to the institution for 35 years. But all of us know that what we'll miss is the presence of Tim, the positive, fun presence of Tim. And we'll have to figure out how to have a pumpkin contest, Jamie, without him, right? I know. And so I know he's listening, and I know he knows how I feel about him. And thank you, Tim, for frankly teaching me how to do my job in the best way possible, and being there for me when I was finding my way in those early years when it wasn't easy, and being a sounding board and being willing to be a sounding board when I know what you really, really, really just wanted to do was get as far away from admin as you could and go do your thing. And but you stuck with me, and you stuck with all the other people who work here in the community, and we appreciate you and we'll miss you very much. So. There are other comments, you all? So.
Any other thoughts? Early on when I was elected, I had asked Josie, how is it that the Ann Arbor District Library can bring programs here, given the size of our town, right? I think we joke that our residents can fit within the stadium, most of us, and yet we bring award-winning authors, diverse, dance troupes, storytellers, just folks who I think a lot of us assume, especially if you're coming to Ann Arbor from other places, that you would see more regularly in larger cities. And Josie said it's because of Tim's work.
Yep.
So I share my thanks and appreciation for Tim and helping bring the library to where it is today, where so many of us wouldn't have had an opportunity to experience these programs and have been part of a larger conversation in arts and culture and history. That work makes Ann Arbor even more amazing. All right, any additional thoughts for Tim? All right, so let's vote on this before the tears flow. Yes, is this a roll call vote, Eli?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, Trustee Ackman,
Yes.
Trustee Green,
Yes.
Trustee Kleinman,
Yes.
Trustee Moore,
Yes.
Trustee Song,
Yes.
Trustee Vanderbrook.
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll miss you terribly, Tim.
We will.
Well, folks, we are at citizens' comments. Eli, have we had any comments come in online or?
Absolutely. Okay, we've got a few more that have come in over the course of the meeting. Let me pull those up here. Okay. Here's a comment from Alex. I feel safe to use AADL to check out books to read in the summer because you have very good COVID-19 without any perineal contact. I'm pretty sure that's not what he meant to say. Thank you for providing a safe environment for all kids to check out books. So thank you, Alex. Here's a comment from Eric Jensen. Thank you for the book collection, which is amazing and up to date, including current bestsellers. Any recommendations from friends or other sources, PBS to me, and I find the book is in the collection or ready to be purchased. Kind regards, Eric Jensen. And here's one that says, hello, I am just watching your board meeting TV. I'm very amazed you are very creative. Without I did not join AADL Summer Game, I did not realize how to watch board meeting, to discover parks, etc. Also, I am glad now I can borrow DVD and books again. Also, Summer Game is the best fun activity in this summer and local due to Art Festival and Summer Festival were canceled. Thank you for your creativity and letting our anticipations. Junko Sonk. All right, and here's one more. This is from a staff member, Heidi Pratt. I really appreciate Jamie's question and checking in on how the staff are faring in this. I agree with Josie's response and your perception of what it is like for staff. I just wanted to share it's a very different way of working without the contact of each other. I miss being able to find someone and bounce an idea off them and find that grounding experience in chatting on the phone, and chatting with each other. It's wonderful seeing the patrons in the vestibule and talking with them on the phone, but I miss chatting across the desk with patrons. I do my best not to engage too much when patrons arrive to pick up their holds since we need to move along quickly in the vestibule, but I often feel that loss over not having that extended friendly chat about the book they just returned or picked up, or seeing friends with their families. I'm fortunate to have many people in my life and none have been touched by the virus. I love programming for AADL TV and I'm impressed by all my coworkers, especially those who have been in the branches, moving materials for our patrons to enjoy. In talking with some of my coworkers, it seems we agree there is so much to appreciate about working at AADL during these strange days, but it's tiring not having the experience of being together in the library spaces on a daily basis. Thank you, Heidi Pratt. And then we have 2 comments that have come in via YouTube. Here's one of them. This is from Bonnie Cheng. AADL has really led the way in COVID-19 response. As an epidemiologist, I was pleasantly surprised by AADL's quick response that went above and beyond what was expected at the time. Thank you. And then here's another comment from YouTube from Vera Schwankel, and it says, "Hi, hey there, just dropped in a little bit ago. I can't describe the benefit you've given to families by having contactless pickups. It's been great for my family to have access to fresh books. Quick question: if the state COVID numbers continue to go up, will the library remain open for contactless pickup? And I responded there in the YouTube question, which is to say, thanks for your comment. It will depend on state level actions and feedback from county public health authorities. It's definitely possible that contact pickup could be suspended. And those are all the comments that we've received. Let me take one last check, make sure nothing else has come in. And that's it.
And it's contactless pickup could be suspended. So even contactless pickup could be suspended. Yeah.
So I know we normally don't respond to public comments, but early on in the beginning of the meeting, there was a question on asking trustees what our favorite summer game shop item was and how long we've been on the board. Would everyone be open to answering that? So I don't know if that came from a young person, and it seemed like a fun exercise. Yeah. Okay. How about I start? So my favorite summer game shop item was the cutting board, and it said AADL board, and it was given to the board. I still laugh over this whenever I use it. It's corny. But not only did we get one as a gift to all the trustees, but there's a young gentleman, a 7-year-old who had saved up points and had gifted me one too. So I have 2 boards, and it's I think of him and how he worked so hard to do that. So that was, he's not even my own child. So it was amazing. And I've been on the board since 2016, elected in 2016, and I'll be finishing my term the end of this calendar year. All right, who's next?
I'll go next. Been on the board since 2018, so about 1.5 years now. And were the pins part of the summer games store? The Joseph
Yes.
pin and the gavel pin? I think those are my favorite.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Next.
I'll go. We go alphabetical maybe. So I'm Victoria. I've been on the board since 2016. I'm also finishing my term this year. I have to agree with Lynn that the AADL board was just too funny. It was too clever. It was absolutely my favorite item because it was hysterical. But probably my most used item from the summer game shop is maybe 1 year or so ago, there were playing cards, and they came in a little plastic case so you could put them in your backpack and your cards wouldn't get squashed. So that's probably my most used item, even if it's not the funniest.
Thank you.
Oh, for alphabetical, is that me next? So I'm Molly Kleinman. I'm the newest board member. I've been on the board since March 2020. So I have never been to an in-person meeting. And I was sworn in via pneumatic tube. My favorite item, I think, is the umbrella, because I believe you can never have too many umbrellas.
Perfect. Thanks. And Jamie.
Oh, I love that cutting board. I don't know. My big confession is that I don't play the summer game. I know. I never have. But my daughter is 4.5 now, and like just this last week I was like, did you know that there is a thing that we can do? You see that code on the house, like the poster? Like maybe this weekend we'll like make an account and you can start to play, because I think she's starting to understand enough that like she'd want to have an account and play. So I think that I might have gone from like 0 to 60 in like a week or so. I've been on the board since 2015. And yeah, the cutting board, who could top that? It was so great.
Great. And we don't know our alphabet. We skipped over Corrine. I'm sorry, Corrine.
I don't think I was skipped, was I? But anyway, it's my 2nd year on the board. I really love my glass AADL water bottle. That's like my favorite so far. But yeah, love all the prizes. Were there other questions we were supposed to answer? I'm really bad at these things.
I think that's it. That's the
Okay.
test. That's the test. Well, I hope that satisfies the one patron's public comment early on. They're good questions. Thank you everyone for watching our meeting. This went over a little bit longer than we normally do, but this is important work. We you know, this is, we have all of our discussions in public with you all and with staff, and I'm just so happy to see all of your faces and have this meeting of the minds. It's the highlight of my month. So thank you all, and thank you everyone for watching us. With that, I'll call this meeting to end. Yes, to adjournment.